Any of you guys watch the Get Back documentary?
Nope.
Get Back.
I've watched the first episode so far.
Yeah, how'd you like it?
I like it a lot.
I think it's kind of, I don't know, it makes me want to be creative.
Right.
It's a
I hear you.
it's a very creative atmosphere that Peter Jackson kind of shows. Because like, it's pretty daunting if you think about it. Like, what were you doing when you were 25 or 26, 27? I think
Right.
they all were, and like they had to come up with 14 new songs, and then do a live.
Right, and you have to realize
show.
too that all that music that I put out prior to this, they did between like 1964 and then, or something stupid like that. Too, I don't remember, but like they existed for under a decade as far as like putting out music.
Yeah, they had a short span if you think about it, which is kind of weird now because bands. I was watching some interviews, and I thought this was like a very modern take on what bands do now. Is that like some bands I listen to, they have solo stuff. They come out with solo stuff, but they still go back to the band. Like that band is always there. It's not like they broke up. It's like, yeah, if you want to go make something for yourself, go do it. Be creative on your own. But there's always like, you can always return home and make stuff with us as like a group, right?
If you guys think about it, the Beatles are just the Jaws of the music world.
God damn it.
Yeah, they're like, they have black eyes, you know. Like dolls.
They have black eyes.
We're just a band, you know, we had black eyes and all that. And I told to John and I said, hey John, what do you think about black eyes? I don't much like it. I don't think it. I find it quite unsettling to look at you while we're drinking our tea, Paul.
It kind of makes me scared, Paul.
Their first album came out in
makes me a little bit scared for the future. No, I mean...
First album, 7 years. 7 years is all that they were around for.
It's not even the fact that they...
Under a decade.
The Beatles, right. But like them creating.
It's how influential they were. Like,
oh, yeah.
And how... Like, the reason I say they're like the Jaws of the music world is they like were one of the... Like, them and Elvis. It's like two sides of the pond, right? Those are the two musicians that really first showed like people going fucking insane for these musicians. And like Elvis dying, the Beatles breaking up, people must have been like, shit, man.
Yeah.
That era that has brought on all these other artists now is like over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was going to say though, in the doc, at one point, George Harrison says to John, when Paul and Ringo go out for a smoke or go out for tea or whatever, he was just talking to John, and he says something like, you know, I really want to go and do my own thing. I'd like to go and maybe write stuff on my own, and I have all these ideas that I can't use here. And John's like, yeah, that'd be great. And like in retrospect, after Peter Jackson showed Paul like that conversation that those two had, he's like, well, I wish I would have known about that because I would have totally gone along with that. That seems like a good like alternative to just breaking up entirely.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like bittersweet when you figure that out, like, oh shit, so much more stuff could have happened and they could have still done stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, it's so many things. Because
it's like a one-off thing that maybe George felt comfortable just talking to John about it because Paul had to take up the de facto leadership.
In that scenario, is it like more or less beneficial for them to say, let's do your ideas and we will like back the ideas that you're trying to have. We won't try and input too much of our own stuff. We'll build on what you're doing instead of the collaborative thing we've been doing where certain people have a certain amount of say. Or would it have been better for that person to just do it on their own
Right, and you see
Because either way,
you
the
see it in
band has a
documentary
chance to stay together.
where like he writes. I think he comes up with some of the. He plucks at his guitar and he comes up with the riff for something, and
Yep.
you hear Ringo come up with the riff for Octopus's Garden, which is hilarious because he's like, "Hey guys, check this out," or I think he's just showing George. He's like, "I woke up and I had this in my head," and then he just starts plucking or like tickling the ivories, and he's like, "I'd like to draw under the sea
with Emma's paint."
Well, it's like
and
in the
then
first
George just like
episode.
looks at him though, like the reaction George has is like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now, Ringo?" But he actually gets up and he goes over to him and he's like, "All right, let's work this out. Let's play along with this. I like creativity, and then I'm gonna reinforce your creative juices flowing, and I'm gonna help you get the song out. Like, don't just let it linger. Don't just let it sit there and fester. Just make it, do it." Which is what I really appreciated about it. They just
really
didn't go half-ass. They never went half-ass. They're like, "All right, we finished this. We do it now."
I really liked that first episode, where it's like Paul just had that kind of opening bit of the song "Get Back." It was sitting there just kind of humming, and it was like different melodies, and then all of a sudden it locked in to what like the actual like melody of the verse would be for it. It was just like, oh, you're waiting for it. He was just, oh,
and you're screaming at him. You're screaming at him like, "Do it,
like,
do it, Jojo, say
yeah,
it." But he's like, he said something else like, "Sweet Loretta."
Yeah.
He came up with
Well,
a
at
totally
first
different...
he was like just the notes at first, right? Just that the melody, and it was just like you're just waiting because he's dancing around it. Bits and pieces are happening. You're like, dude, you're almost there. You're almost there. Then he hits it, and you're like, yes.
Fuck yeah, dude, you did it. Congrats.
The same when they were developing "Don't Let Me Down." Also, that was pretty cool. Don't let me down.
Yeah, I'd say like
John Lennon was working on for most of it.
what's really
And then George is
sad...
just like, deuces, I quit.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The saddest part is the first episode. Like, where it just is the first couple days. You're like, all right.
You can see how frustrating, because it's just fucking John and Paul going back and forth, right? And fucking George is just sitting there. He's just like.
But you got to realize at the time, it's like what within their 8 years together, right? At this point, like
7
at this point, right? So like, they've been together that long, so like they kind of know each other's ego, and they know what how to talk to each other. You'd think,
right? This, the album "Let It Be" that they're working on here. That album was their last released album, but it was their second to last recorded album. So like,
yeah,
they were
Road,
doing all
right?
that stuff.
Abbey Road came after.
Then they left it and did Abbey Road. And then they broke up after that and then put out Let It Be. Like, Let It Be, I think, was put out either just before or right after they broke up.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
But still, it's like you gotta realize each other's egos during spouts or like things with each other. Like when they have these fights, you got to know how to talk to each other if you're like that intimately connected with writing stuff and whatever.
But at that point, they're just like, they're just so much shit going on. It's weird too how much they changed like visually in those 7 years too. From your nice little handsome mod boys to fucking Sergeant Pepper, Sergeant Pepper era. And
I
then
think
like
that was due to the LSD.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. So it started when they're hanging out. I don't know if they were backstage or if they were just hanging out somewhere where Bob Dylan was, and like he disappears in a room, and like I think Ringo disappears with him or some shit. Then Ringo comes back and he's all like, ugh, and he's like, Pop's got some marijuana. They're like, oh shit, and they all go back there, and that was the first time they smoked weed. It was with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, he introduced them to that.
And then LSD, acid happened, and
Heroin.
the whole fucking, none of them really got heroin.
Yeah, I think John Lennon's the only one that got into heroin.
I don't really know if he did. I don't know if Lennon did. I mean, Clapton definitely did. But maybe he did. I don't know that much about John.
I know that. Yeah, his facial.
If Ringo wasn't there, he'd be my least favorite Beatle.
If Ringo, what?
If Ringo wasn't there, John would be my least favorite Beatle.
You don't like Ringo?
No, I mean just creatively is the least output. So it's
yeah, but just as a
the
person,
least
as a person, he's like the most real.
Well, yeah, he's the most chill. But I mean, as a Beatle, like if I'm listing out my favorite Beatles, I'm not gonna put Ringo out there as one of my favorite.
As like a creative,
you know.
I mean, yeah, and you can't have one without the other with John or Paul.
I'm a George boy.
Same, I'm a George boy. I mean, he was the quiet one and the reserved one.
The quiet genius, dude. He was the most musically like sound out of all of them for the most part.
Well, he was definitely like, was he the rhythm guitarist or just like the lead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's one of those things where they just kind of since there wasn't much for guitar solos ever in Beatles songs.
Yeah.
They were just played different parts usually. Like they're like I don't know if one would be lead or rhythm, but like it's just they played it kind of like Rolling Stones too, where neither guitar player is playing the same thing, but they just layer on top of each other. You know.
Sure.
It's kind of that situation.
Yeah, I mean they all changed each other's like they. I mean, Paul would play piano and bass and drums sometimes, and
guitar.
They'd all switch. They'd switch acoustic to a bunch of stuff. And that's
Ringo would stand in a corner.
That's what the. Yeah, because that's all he did. I mean, when he left his kit, they would jump on his kit. He said in the documentary, like everybody.
You see it in the documentary. He leaves and Paul jumps up there at one point in the first episode.
You gotta just beat the demons out, you know? You gotta beat the hell out of it.
You gotta beat the demons out. It's true.
I mean, that's...
Yeah,
That's what I love about the documentary. And I can't say that I'm a Beatle head or like a big Beatle...
Yeah.
Like, I went through my phase of Beatle music. I'm like, yeah, a lot of it's really good, and it's fun to revisit some songs. And, like... Yeah, I'll listen to it every now and then, but I'm like not gonna search it out and be like, oh, I need to listen to this today. But like, I know their influence, and I know their
my Beatles are like mid to late era. So those last 4 years or whatever the fuck it was.
The Sgt. Pepper.
Basically, Sgt. Pepper is my jam. Sgt. Pepper and the Magical Mystery Tour EP. Those are my creme de la creme.
They're great, and their response to Pet Sounds, which is awesome. That you can take reference or take some influence from other artists and be like, oh yeah,
that's what music is, dude.
I love this. I'm gonna totally make it my own. I'm gonna just do it.
That's exactly what music is. It's hey, I like that. I'm gonna take it. It's music in a nutshell, which is great. Like,
well, not even just not take it. Like,
jazz that happens real time.
Well, not take
jazz
it,
that happens real time.
Not take it in the sense.
Well, they
like,
do.
I'm gonna take this riff. I'm gonna
they
take
use
this.
it.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
What they liked about Pet Sounds is that
it adds to their repertoire.
It's very, exploring of the vastness of your sound. Like what Brian Wilson did was he tried a bunch of stuff. Like he experimented, and that's what
Acid mainly.
Well, no, with the jam sessions.
No,
like,
I know.
with
The acid mainly was a joke. But
seriously,
yes.
yeah, he brought in animals. He brought in a bike. He brought in
Yeah.
he put a bunch of bobby pins on the piano and plucked the strings of the piano with bobby pins to make those weird sounds of some of the intros. And I mean, they show it in Love and Mercy, the movie with Paul Dano as young Brian Wilson, showing the fact that when his family, his brothers like Mike Love and the other Beach Boy dudes,
a cousin.
I know, but he had his brothers there too. They were off touring, and he was in the studio producing Pet Sounds with I don't know if it was the Wrecking Crew or whatever studio musicians.
Yep, it was the Wrecking Crew.
He had them like do a bunch of stuff. He was conducting them. He brought it. He like, here, play this.
Oh yeah.
And here, I'm gonna shove a pillow.
Yeah, he was the only one that actually like musically wrote things.
Exactly.
Really?
And they show it, or I mean, you can hear it in the film that he has like this kind of synesthesia with song, where like you hear it in the movie that he has a cacophony of sounds and rhythms and beats playing in his head at all times, and you can pick out small things of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Oh, there's God only knows. Like you can just faintly hear them in the background.
Yeah.
And it shows the artist's struggle to like beat the demons out and get these freaking songs written. Because
beat out them demons, dude.
Because they're honestly, it's like these are demons in his head, or like they're subliminal, like when you hear things in your head. Or when you say
mental,
like, somebody's going through episodes of I'm hearing voices, he was hearing music that he just had to get out. So that's what like his struggle was. Is like, I just got to create this. I just got to do it. And then
just got to musically masturbate, dude, and get the fucking demons out.
And then the response from the Beatles were like, "Whoa, did you see what fucking Brian Wilson did?" He got some demons out, so let's take
an ass ton of acid and let's do it again in the best way possible. No, that's like one of my favorite albums of all time. Is
the Sgt. Pep and Pet Sounds.
Sgt. Pet Sounds I haven't listened to as much, not for any reason, but
some bangers on
Sgt. Pep's and then Magical Mystery Tour, which like collects a bunch of their singles from that era, as well as has like the EP for it.
Right.
Is great too, because that's got Magical Mystery Tour, Your Mother Should Know, I Am the Walrus, Fool on the Hill, Flying, and Blue Jay Way, which are all tight. And then the singles. They have Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, and All You Need Is Love, which were all released in 1967 as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's just, that 66, 67 is primetime beats for me. Revolver was right before it. That's really good.
Revolver was like, they're like, ooh, let's at the height of our LSD trips, Rubber Soul and like Revolver were like, let's get funky.
That's where they were really getting into it.
Yeah,
and then Sgt. Pepper's was it in all its glory.
Yeah.
And then White Album was right after Magical Mystery Tour. So, because then it goes, so Revolver, then Sgt. Pepper's, Magical Mystery Tour EP, then White Album, then Yellow Submarine, and then Abbey Road, and then Let It Be. As far as releases go.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a sad term, or sad, events played out where like
it was a month after the group broke up.
Why don't we just take a hiatus, guys? Like, why didn't somebody step in and be like, you guys, you're only like 27, you're barely 30. Can you just take a break? You've been going for the past 7 to 8 years. Just go on a hiatus and come back when you're ready to produce more stuff. It's not like people are forcing you to do this at gunpoint. Just take a break.
Right.
I mean, yeah, go be creative and do other things on your own, sure, but like always know that this is here for us when we want it. Like, don't just say it's definitively done. But I mean, that's where we get into John Lennon being like, nope, never again, no more, all done. Too much of a hassle, can't be bothered, sorry.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly,
this is fun seeing.
That's honestly what Paul says about it. Is like, yeah, John broke it up.
Yeah.
I would have still been in it.
It's fun to see them having fun together still, though. Like, even though, you know, like, because before that, they started that whole process, Ringo had quit for like 3 weeks. And then it wasn't in the movie, but that happened before, like, just that year. I think 68. And then
yeah, it's so funny.
And then fucking George leaves
yeah.
there. And then fucking, yeah. But they're still having fun, or, you know.
That's what I go back to, is like, they can never really, like, completely disown each other. I don't know, because they've been together for so long. That's what I keep coming back to. It's like, if you know somebody for about...
They've been a band with each other since they were fucking 14, 15 years old. You know what I mean?
They were super young. So, like, they've been together. They know each other so well. It's like, oh, it's like disconnecting with your family of sorts.
Well, yeah, it's just like anything. You're around anybody for a long time, it can wear on you, and especially when it's not like, you know, not saying that people in other bands have different things creatively, but like when you have 3 very, like, sure creative minds in a group, you know what I mean, and you have to constantly concede about things, you know. Yeah. Or like have your idea that you think is good get shot down by everybody else, you know?
Yeah, go off.
Like after a while, that fucking wears on you, you know? Especially, I'm sure, with people like John and Paul. Because like Paul's, you can see in that fucking documentary too, Paul's very much like, okay, we're fucking in it. Let's fucking do this. And he's like real serious. And he's not like precious about people's opinions. Like, he'll be like, nah, I think that's stupid, or like, forget what song it is, but he's just constantly like, that's corny, but like like using it that way could be good, but if we do this, then that's just gonna sound corny too. And
right,
then,
they're
he's
talking
just
about like what's the lyric, and it's like, well, what if we just make it instrumental? This part, he's like, well, it's corny. It's like, well, give it a shot at least, like.
But that's
exhaust
also like
all avenues before you like make a definitive choice.
I think it's a song. Hingle cough. I think it's a song that John had brought, and we were working on. I forget what fucking song it is. It's gonna piss me off. But yeah, there's this line that they kind of came up with, but it flows good. But like Paul was saying, like, it's corny, but like with the way the song is, it works. And then the discussion became like, afterwards they were going to repeat, and whether they repeat that line or alter it. He's like, but if we say it a second time, this will be really corny. And just like, so he's not like dissing them, but he's just very like, he's very sure of like what he thinks creatively, and isn't afraid to kind of like say it, where like, you know, maybe the others won't. Like George seemed like a dude, like even within the band, that was quiet, you know.
Exactly, he's very
and like
he takes it all in then, first. He absorbs it, and then like if he has something to say,
he'll say things, but then he'll, like, you see it in there like right before he quits a couple times where it's like he'll kind of say something or have an opinion on something, and then it just turns into like John and Paul talking, and then doing their ideas and kind of poo-pooing whatever he's saying, And it's just, since he's quiet and doesn't get it out, it builds to a point where he's just like, all right, I'm leaving. See ya.
Right. It's like
just very like
so frustrating.
And in such a George Harrison way too. Like the most chill like quitting of a band ever. Just like, all right, I'm leaving the band. I'm just gonna go whatever. It's just so casual.
Well, he straight up says, well, I'm leaving the band now.
Yeah, just matter of fact, just real, like I said, like the most George Harrison way of quitting a band ever.
Well,
just like, all right.
he doesn't like to cause. I wouldn't say he likes. He did it to make a statement saying like, you're not hearing me. Your ego's.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. It wasn't okay.
Like, it wasn't.
I don't
think his main goal was to be like, I'm leaving the band and this is definitive. He basically said, you're not listening to me. I'm going to threaten you with leaving the band, and I'll come back at my own time. Like, I don't know what his mentality at the time, and I can't really talk to him, but I think he was just saying, I'm just going to piss you guys off.
Well, it was definitely to prove a point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
I think
it was an empty threat.
I don't think like I don't think it was an empty threat, but I also didn't think he was going full tilt like burn bridges. I think he was just like, dude, I'm fucking done with this. If this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, he didn't like
I'm just going to leave.
Like a cigarette.
No.
Sean, and then like kick a garbage can as he left and gave the deuces and was like, fuck y'all, I'm out of here.
It's basically just like, okay, dude, if this is how you guys want it to be, I'm just gonna fucking peace out. Talk to me if you fucking,
calm down. Yeah.
If you get in my wavelength here.
And
I like how it was fucking George Harrison's fault that all those fucking Hare Krishnas are hanging out in the fucking.
They're harmless, but they're freaky, but they're harmless.
They're harmless, but it is George. It's 100% George.
And you haven't got to
he was the fucking Hare
You haven't
Krishna.
got to the second part then, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I like that. There's a part in the first part where they're playing a song or singing. One of the Hare Krishnas that's sitting there is just kind of singing along a little bit, but not like in like a dance and having a good time. Just like he's still doing his shit.
Yeah.
Like his Hare Krishna shit, but he's fucking also like singing along with the words. Like, what the fuck?
I'm just gonna say to tack on to I've seen all parts.
Also, I don't think having all those extraneous people there.
Yeah, that doesn't really help. But like
having like I don't know how up until that point they were doing it, but having Linda and fucking and Yoko and fucking I don't know how often Ringo's wife was there, but she was there
all the
in the first episode.
Yeah.
And then also having like your producer, your
the
like
film crew,
the person who owns the fucking thing, the crew, the cameras. Like we see how that affects people doing reality shows. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
I heard that they set up the cameras.
Even though reality shows are like scripted to a degree, right? They're
very formulaic and all done in the edit.
Yeah, and they're plotted and like.
I would love to see an edit of that. Could you imagine if
all
they
that stuff
put those sound effects that they do in
even
reality shows in this documentary, right? Like the violin going, or like the Iron Chef sound effects,
or just the low like bass hit tone, just the dun.
Yeah, dun dun. But I was gonna say the camera crew were very strategic with how they approached this because they didn't want to be invasive. They wanted to let things go.
Well, there's a lot. There's a decent. I'm not gonna say a lot.
They put tape over the lights. There's a decent chunk in that.
Did you know? Right. That? Oh, really? Interesting.
The cameramen would put tape over the red light. They'd set up their shot.
Oh.
They'd hit record on the
Sneaky.
reel. They'd hit the record on the reel, and then they'd pretend to walk away to like go get a sandwich. So like the Beatles, the guys, they would just be like, "Oh, he must be just leaving, so he's not recording anything." And it doesn't look like it's on, so it's like, let's just talk.
They do a good job to like. I mean, again, in just that first episode, you see it a couple times where they like if you didn't know that there were spots of this where they didn't have footage, but they had audio, like you wouldn't really notice it.
Yeah,
but like
that's the thing.
If you do know and you're watching it, you can see where it's like, oh, this is a part they didn't have film, but they had audio for. Like it's just something of them like kind of standing or like with their backs to the camera, fiddling around with their instruments, or like they'll cut one at the tail end of when one of them's talking, so it looks like they're finishing the same sentence or some shit.
Exactly, and that
it happens a couple times, but they do it really well though.
And that brings to the aftermath of the George split, where like in the doc in part 2, I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna give you the full breakdown, but
well, dude, I know what happened.
They preface in the doc that the camera crew and the documentary crew that were there, they put microphones everywhere. So they hid one in a potted plant.
Hell yeah, dude.
And when when I think it was Paul and John both left to go have breakfast or something like that, they actually discuss kind of how much of a dick they were to George. And they basically resolve the whole feud by saying, I'm really mad at myself that I wasn't listening to him, or like I'm really sad
because they know they're not dumb, dude. They got caught up in their shit, right? When you're in your like anything, when you're in the when you're in like in the zone and you're like super on your shit.
Well, and they have to make
and like you're
songs.
Not thinking, and you're just going.
We just got to get these 14 songs
thinking
out of there.
Time, but they're also thinking like fucking structure. We got to figure this out, and and him just kind of locking in on John, and then John just kind of doing John, and then and George is just like we'll just play this, George. And then George's like, this doesn't sound really good though if you listen to it over that. We'll try this little scale thing. And I was like, you're like, oh, George. Poor dude.
Poor dude. Just
and then all it takes is just for them to calm down, get out of that situation, like literally get out of the studio there, and
no, that's the truth.
Not working on music.
The second
and then they get to the fucking pub, and then they're like, shit, dude, we're fucking jerks. And John's like, yeah, dude, shit, we fucked that up.
You gotta listen to it. It's such a good.
I feel bad about it.
It's such a good dialogue that they have, because it's like very candid, very like their kind of way of talking to each other. It's very real.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm really pissed. I'm really pissed about it.
Did you see the thing from Julian Lennon?
No.
John's oldest son.
Mm-mm.
Who Hey Jude is about, and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is about his drawing. But when he has a lot of negative memories about his dad.
Well, yeah, because he abandoned him.
Well, yeah, exactly. How Paul was kind of more like a dad to him for a while, and hence why Hey Jude was a thing. But he was saying, let me just bring it up because it'll be easier.
Was he talking about the doc itself?
Yeah, because he went to the premiere with his brother, with Sean, his half brother. And says Julian Lennon says Get Back was a life-changing experience for him. He said, let's see. The one true thing I can say about it all is that it made me so proud, inspired, and feel more love for our family than ever before. The film has made me love my father again in a way I can't fully describe.
Oh, well, he's the real beautiful boy.
Because but I suppose, he has all these very specific memories of his dad. And doesn't probably have, well, I mean, I don't know how much he actually had. So I know John liked to film things. They have the movies and shit, but he might not have a lot of candid video of his dad, just seeing him as he was.
Right. Which was mostly high.
And because otherwise, all the footage he would have seen, or maybe if he had some home videos or whatever, and then the Beatles movies, and just him in the press, right?
Yeah.
That's the visual, the only visuals you can return to. And nothing candid and personal.
That's what I
and
would
this
do.
is a little more candid and personal.
It's
So like for
105
him,
hours of
this
footage.
is seeing a side of his dad that he hasn't seen or forgotten about, long time ago.
I want the
right?
cut where it's all 105 hours.
All of it, dude.
Given to Julian and all the
Oh
family.
my god.
Because that's like
All
that's,
the kids.
That's family films, It's
Dude,
like,
all their kids look like them too.
that's true.
Kind of ridiculous.
George Harrison's kid looks just like him.
Just like him, Danny Harrison, dude. Yeah. Even Paul McCartney's got a son that is like blonde, I think, but he looks exactly like him. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. He doesn't have the mop top.
Yeah. And then Julian and Sean both look like John in very different ways.
Yeah, when they wear like the glasses, like if they both wear circle glasses.
Like Sean is very much like psychedelia era John. Julian is like
Quarrymen.
young or old man John.
Oh sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Where he's kind of shed his psychedelic era trappings.
Yeah, that's.
But yeah, I never thought about that with some of those dudes, especially John and George's family, and to see them either in a way they never did, or B, just seeing quote unquote new footage of him, right?
Right. Like it's kind of like having it restored too is kind of a feat in itself, because Peter Jackson did the They Shall Not Grow Old documentary about the first, the Great War.
Yep.
And he restored all that footage and color graded it and made it look modern and brought the speed of the film down and made it look kind of naturalistic.
I wonder if he used any of the stuff from the finished, like the movie that they ended up putting out. Because they ended up putting out the Let It Be movie that was comprised of the footage from this.
Yeah.
Because obviously the main idea fell through and whatever. But I wonder if there was maybe better quality of stuff, or the stuff was better taken care of that was used in that or not.
There was so many funny...
It's a different print probably.
Yeah, there's so many funny takes from the director of the documentary, the whatever his name is, Michael Lindsay Hogg. He proposes all these really dumb ideas to them, and like you can just see them kind of like take really subtle glances at each other, like, is this guy fucking serious? Like, shut up.
Are you talking about the dude that owns the thing that they're in? That guy?
No.
Or which guy? Oh no, the record guy. The record guy that comes in. That guy?
No, he's the guy that's directing the
movie.
The movie that all the footage is being taken from.
I just remember like a couple points similar to that where it was like the guy who owns or is renting the space that they're in.
Yes.
The one that was going to make that movie with Ringo right after it.
Yes. I
love how that's such a weird thing where it's just like this dude cast Ringo in this movie and he's going to be renting out this big ass thing, this big ass studio warehouse thingy for this amount of time, but hey, we'll rent it out like a couple weeks ahead of time and we can do this Beatles thing in there too. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
honestly, that's like the worst thing
the like way things like that lined up, right?
Was the Twickenham, I think it was called, right?
Yeah.
I think
oh yeah, dude, they were complaining about that thing so much.
The second they walked in, they're like, the acoustics suck in here.
Yeah.
This is made for film.
You think about it, like where they're set up there, but like that's like not even like a tenth of like the warehouse. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, and they're just pushed into a corner, and
so this huge warehouse.
They don't even have an 8-track recorder, so they have
their mics suck.
They have to borrow George's, and he's like, "I can give you guys an 8-track."
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, let's just, yeah, they get pissed off and they go to the Apple Studios or the other place, and it's like the second episode is like probably the best. It's like watching Godfather and being like, shit, and like the sour taste in your mouth. You're like, oh, I just got to watch the second one now. And like, when you watch the second one, you're like, oh hell yeah, they introduce Billy Preston and like all these things are coming together. They finish a couple songs, and you're like, oh hell yeah, this is great.
Yep.
It just becomes more of like a great feature of them like playing the songs and then going into the recording studio and like listening to the playback and like being, oh hell yeah, that's awesome. And
hell yeah,
when Billy shows up, it's just like the funnest. Like they're just playing and they're having fun, and it's like, hell yeah, do it, guys, make great stuff. And that's another thing about Billy Preston. Like, since he's like, you could say he's connected to the Beatles, and he's probably you could say since he was, you know,
he's one of the few like featured musicians outside of the Beatles to be on a Beatles album.
And he could claim ownership if he's like, if the Beatles broke up and he was part of the Beatles, he could be
Clapton.
like, I'm bringing the Beatles back. And he's like, he starts.
Well, he has no ownership. He has no ownership.
They broke up. I'm just like thinking of loopholes that he could take. Like, well, you guys broke up, right?
Right.
And I was part of your band, so can I just start it again? Just do his own
thing.
I just thought that would be kind of interesting if he did that.
It's like him and like Clapton, and then like maybe like a couple other people. They're like featured. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure there's other people that play on it, but none like that, right?
Well, like he played on like most of that album.
Yeah.
I think a few songs, like Two of Us, was just guitars. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was like specifically done with just like a few instruments and not like a full arrangement. But yeah, a lot of it was done with the electric keyboard, and it added so much to it. But yeah, definitely let me know what you think of the last two episodes. Like the last episode is basically the rooftop concert and like them trying to figure out if they're gonna do it, and you're like, I wonder if they're gonna do it.
I wonder if they're gonna do it.
I doubt they do it.
Because my dad wants to watch it too, so like I'm either go wait till he watches it or to like speed up the process, be like, hey, you want to watch this first one again with me, and then and then I'll watch the other two with him too, but it's probably going to be spaced out. It's not going to be slammed down my throat like I usually do when this stuff comes out.
Honestly, I'd
operate on dad time
again. I would definitely go back and just keep.
Yeah, I want to watch the first one again.
It's
I know I missed shit
There's so many subtle things of their interactions that they're inside jokes.
Oh yeah,
and like when they just break into song about, like they always pick up old, like they're so into classic rock, like very into like, you know, Buddy Holly and Elvis and all.
Just like rock and roll, like OG rock and roll.
They love OG rock and roll, so it shows because they play like a bunch of like B.B. King and all this other crap.
Yep, all those the British Invasion dudes were huge blues, early rock and roll dudes. So
right,
you could hear it most in like fucking the Stones because they wear the blues influence very heavily on their sleeve.
And there's I forget what song they're doing, but like I think it is Two of Us, but since it's just like a John and Paul kind of gig, they play the song in so many different ways. Like they do it in an accent, which is hilarious. They play it through gritted teeth, like they pretend like they're ventriloquists and they're like pronouncing things differently. So they're talking like this, and everything is D. Do a dust die dig do where and it's they try it all these different ways. That's funny.
That's why I love this, is because it's like when you're at this point in the Beatles' career, you just think that like John and Paul like aren't talking or like mad at each other or some shit, but then you watch this, they're still fucking goofing around and doing silly shit together. And not even just like one of them's doing silly shit while the whole group's together. It's like the whole group's there, but like John and Paul are like locked into each other doing goofy shit.
Right, and that's my thing. Like you see, I can say like my second favorite Beatle would be Ringo, just because I don't know, creatively
As a person,
just he's
as a person,
he's a genuinely cool, laid back guy that like.
If we're going by people, Ringo would be above John for me, for sure.
Oh yeah, but like as Ringo just seems like a chill, laid back dude that you can just talk to when whenever. But he also has like that kind of goofy sensibility about him.
Yeah.
The fighting egos of the three others,
right,
kind of gets in the way of things.
I have very weird, like, complex feelings about John Lennon. That dude.
He's a very.
I think it's just
guy.
like
He's very.
He is very complex, dude, and like, just like
he could have been borderline autistic, if you think.
Just
about
hearing it, like how like the John Lennon greatest hits on stuff, like as in like, just like kind of generally knowing what the dude was about, right?
Yeah.
And like, and then hearing the songs, and then people always talk about how great he is, and then like, then you find out how big of like a dick he actually was.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know the full history behind his like psychopathy or like his not to say like he's psychotic, but like his
obviously there's
his brain chemistry.
Brain was doing a lot of stuff, yeah. Like a lot of
him to do
that stuff. A lot of creatives, the brain just kind of keeps going all the time.
That's why I think like whenever there's some kind of like profound genius that shows up, and even nowadays, like you look at Elon Musk, right? He has Asperger's, or he's on the spectrum, and he's come out and said that. I always look back at these people that are musically inclined and that they're a little bit of savants of some sort, and so they don't know how to interact socially. So maybe John, I'm not making like, I don't know, I'm just spitballing that he could.
He was just always had
some kind.
He's just always had like, I mean, what's that one fucking Nowhere Boy or whatever the fuck that movie's called with Aaron Taylor Johnson?
Oh yeah, okay.
Is that what it's called? Where he plays young John Lennon.
Nowhere Boy, Nowhere Man, something like that.
But he always had anger issues, and like a lot of it stems from his relationship with his mother, and like so it kind of makes the treating his women like shit thing make a little more sense, I guess, but not like forgivable, but like you can kind of see where he got it from,
Yeah, and I mean he was very young too, and you have to take that into account. He wasn't like in his 40s when he's acting like this. He's like he never got to that point, really.
No, and he was cheating on Yoko with their maid, or like, I don't know if she's their maid or they're like nurse, like nanny situation or something. Then there's that like famous like lost week or whatever the fuck where he just fucked off, and like he left with her, the girl that he was cheating on Yoko with.
I don't know that whole story, but I'm not.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy. I forget. It was like the Lost Weekend or some shit is what it was called, because he just fucked off. He was
married to Yoko at this point.
Yes, married and had Sean already at that point.
I gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a huge Beatle maniac. I don't know a lot about it.
That's one of the things with something like, you know me, if something like catches my eye, I'll just fucking read all, like just inhale the information. And when I saw that, I was just like, I have to know. I have to know all the sons of bitchery of fucking John Lennon. Not to say all the others weren't shits at some point in time, but he wasn't the most consistently a shit.
And have it, cataloged and put down.
But he's still very charming and like he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And he does write good music. You know, he's not my favorite songwriter in the Beatles, but he does write good music.
Right, and you, like I said, you can't have one person specifically be the songwriter because it's like
like a lot of things too.
Paul and John. Duality.
It's the magic of those two. Yeah. That's why, like, if it's written by just one or the other, not saying it's bad, but it's missing something, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you're like, this is a component, but there's another component missing. It's the the double.
Exactly. That's why Day in the Life works.
The Lennon McCartney, the fucking exactly.
Because the
Lennon McCartney, Jagger, Richards, you know.
I love that story too.
You get, it's yeah, man, them Beatles. But yeah, the thing we were talking about earlier that was the thing that blew my mind the most always is when I first discovered they were only around for like 7 years. Like in the public eye.
Yeah.
They had been like in a group together since like 1961 or some shit like that.
Could you imagine if they like spaced out these albums? Like every other year or like
Well, yeah, you think like I don't know how many, because obviously like they were at the beginning of the time where the album was actually a format. Like before that, it was always EPs and singles people were putting out.
Yeah.
And the albums were like not like the prevailing format.
Right.
But when stuff like started coming out, like Beatles and stuff like that, it blew up. So the album really became a format. So like even like the early stuff sometimes is just compilations of a couple EPs they put out or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that would have been a fine approach too. Is just like come out with single after single and then just make compilations at the end of the year. Fine.
And that's the thing too. Like they pretty much did that. Like we were talking about, they did Sgt. Pepper. And then within the next year,
that tells like a story.
Within the next year, did that Magical Mystery Tour EP that was like 5 or whatever songs.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's fucking 7 singles that's on like the LP version of Magical Mystery Tour that are the singles they put out in 1967 alone. And there was like 7 of them. It's pretty much like most of an album that they put out.
Yep.
And they were all bangers too. Like we were talking about, it was like Strawberry Fields and like All You Need Is Love, and like it was just bangers. And then the next year then they do fucking the White Album like right after that. Then right into fucking Get Back, and then or Let It Be.
Yeah, Let It Be.
Then, so it's pretty much nonstop. They were doing at least an album's worth of material a year for most of that time, which is insane.
It is insane. And the creativity that came out of that, you gotta wonder, was it forced because they were like under a deadline, or like something was telling them like, you guys better get this done? Like what do you mean? Like I think
part of it, but then once they got big enough too, that's when they were like, hey, fuck it, we're not touring anymore. Like we want to do music, this type of music, and this music is not gonna, like, we're not gonna be able to tour it. So it's like we're just not gonna do it.
Well, yeah, didn't they have like a bad,
we're just gonna become a studio band.
They had a bad interaction during
the
tour?
Bad experience.
Like,
and then like the found that the music that they were making as well was too complicated to be replicated live. So it's like too many moving parts, too many whatever. So they're just like, nah, fuck it, we're done. We're gonna be a studio band now, and that's what they were for the last 4 years or whatever, 3 or 4 years. After Revolver, I think it was after Revolver, right before Sgt. Pepper, I think.
Yeah, they could have done like stuff. I mean, I know they've talked about their influence on the Monkees, and like that was my. I'd say the Monkees are a good American analog to the Beatles for some respect, because I know they didn't play their own instruments on the.
Not at first. They eventually learned.
Well, Nesmith was a guitarist, I think.
But
he didn't play.
They originally did not. The only person that actually did their thing was
Davey. He sang.
Davey. Yeah. But then
but they're all good singers. They're all great singers.
They got and they got lessons and learned how to play. So then they really did know how to play.
Yeah, but on
by the end of it,
their first few albums were just studio musicians doing it.
Yeah,
but still, like they're.
But to be fair, so it's like most bands' music. Like we were talking about the Beach Boys. Like there's only one Beach Boy that's actually like playing an instrument other than singing on those albums. You know what I mean?
And the Beatles,
and that's Brian Wilson
too. You can't say like all bands do that. Like the Beatles definitely had accompaniments by symphonies. And
Beatles.
Things like that.
When the Beatles did that, though, they all were still on the track in some way, shape, or form. Usually, you know what I mean?
I mean,
like
same with the Monkees.
Wasn't like they did it because record labels had the money invested in it and they wanted it recorded well, and a lot of bands were not recording studio ready, so they had hired musicians play all the instruments on those. So it's like, yeah, that's why most of the Beach Boys aren't on any of the albums except for singing.
Exactly. I mean, you could say arranged by or like composed by
Jackson 5. Well, yeah, it'd be written by Brian Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Or if the song had lyrics written by, Mike Love or whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah.
Then it would be by, Love and Wilson, right? But that's it, because he arranged all the instruments too he composed everything. Fucking Brian Wilson.
Yeah, and that
makes total sense that dude then took enough acid to kind of make himself mentally challenged, mentally disabled a little bit.
Well, do you know his story at all? Like what happened in his later years after his brothers died?
Like his manager taking advantage of him and shit, like that stuff.
Not manager, just a lawyer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, lawyer.
I think it was like a lawyer that fed him.
Yeah, I knew someone had taken someone of like authority had taken.
It's like the
him for a ride.
Conservatorships, that's going around with the Britney Spears thing. Like it's basically it was that situation where he was just fed pills to be docile, and then this guy.
Well, yeah, because you look at Brian, you looked at him, he was just like a blank. Like his face was just blank.
Well, if you look up pictures of him, he's got like this grizzly beard. He's just huge, like obese, like super overweight, and just laying in bed all day. And very, very dry mouth, just like just drooling mass.
Fucking B-Wills, dude.
Yeah, but like seriously,
that dude, musical genius, fries himself. Both his brothers die. Like, ugh.
But now he's on the straight and narrow, and he's still making stuff, and that's why
he
the movie
finally
was
did
Love and Mercy.
He finally did his version of Smile.
Yeah, the Smile. Oh, that's where the
Pet Sounds turned into.
Yeah.
Also, like Smile stuff, like a lot of it was it got sprinkled out throughout the era. You got different songs here and there, but like it started out as what it was, and then it turned into Pet Sounds eventually. They did release a Smile album at one point too.
I think it was,
but I don't think it was the full thing. No, like the Beach Boys themselves back in the day.
Boys. Okay. No, it probably wasn't how he envisioned it in the first place.
No.
And it shows how much of a dick Mike Love is.
Within a decade. Mike Love can eat all of my dicks.
The film shows how much.
I like him less than I like John Lennon.
Oh my god! And my sister met him and got a picture with him and everything. I was like,
ugh,
really?
He's so skeezy looking, dude. He looks so skeezy.
When she got the picture, she's like, "Look, I got the picture with the Beach Boys." I'm like, "Not the good one, not any of the ones that matter." I mean, this fucker's on Full House doing Jesse and the Rippers bullshit. Like, what the fuck? He just wants to make a buck playing the rehashes of his Fun in the Sun music and surfing, girls, cars.
Yeah. None of the good stuff.
Becomes stagnant with old classics. I mean, they're fine.
So,
a lot of those are good, but repetitive and dumb.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, later Beach Boys is a lot of trash. So Smile was supposed to be after Pet Sounds.
Okay.
So yeah, after a year of recording, they shelved it, and they released a downscaled version, Smiley Smile, in '67.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun influence that happened back in the 60s and 70s that musicians were like experimenting with. Like the first, I mean, you could.
Oh yeah, Good Vibrations was from that session.
You can claim,
Sorry.
I guess you can claim the Beatles instigated some genres that popped up after, you know, Rubber Soul and Revolver, because there's
Well,
so much heavy metal
see,
influence in there.
Two vital components that, three vital components that birthed the genre of music I love so much, being progressive rock, was fucking psychedelia and psychedelic music, and then fucking Pet Sounds and Sgt. Pepper's, that like formed the basis of like progressive rock.
Yeah, but you see the impetus of some heavy metal that sprouts out of.
Oh yeah,
some
dude.
of the
Fucking
early Beatles.
Helter Skelter is metal as fuck, dude.
And it's bizarre that, you know, that's something like it was so new. They're like, what am I listening to? What the fuck is this?
Right.
This is a new genre. This is really angry and frustrating. It's heavy metal.
Yeah. It's heavy metal, dude. So many things got a heavy metal tag that didn't deserve it back in the day.
I know, and I forgot who said it or who coined it, but I remember the story that I was told that a music like reviewer was reviewing Jimi Hendrix playing the guitar,
right?
And he coined the phrase. It sounded, or like the sentence was, the sound came at me like a bunch of heavy metal falling on the ground, and like that's where the term heavy metal came from. I don't know who said it exactly, but maybe it was like a Rolling Stone writer or something like that. But
well, it was so like
it was something to do with the sound of heavy metal hitting something.
The cute answer, or the one that like is the widely accepted one, is it comes from Born to Be Wild.
That's
Heavy
cute.
Metal Thunder.
That's cute.
And then they latched onto that, and then used that to like describe heavier sounding music.
Because that's the heaviest metal I've ever heard. Born to Be Wild.
Right.
That and Bad to the Bone are like the hardest shit that ever came to music at the time. That it's a fucking blues riff, and then it's like
from the day I was born.
Yeah.
So down them sound.
Say what out of wonder.
You know what I wonder. Let the way on the higher.
We don't need a little.
Took it on the door.
Sweet
Honey.
Bad
the bone. Oh, that hurt.
That song fucking playing when the Terminator shows up, and it's the in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. He's got that jacket.
Yep.
Booming that song. Like, this is kind of on the nose, James. Like, what? He is Bad to the Bone, but seriously,
he is bad to the bone,
but he has no bones. He's a skeleton.
I got him.
He's a metal skeleton.
Got no bones.
All right, we've exhausted enough of Get Back, I'd say.
Did we?
Yeah, I mean, I want you to see the last 2 episodes, and then let me know what you think of the fucking Billy Preston showing up, being all, I'm cool as shit. I'm here to fuck shit up.
Well, you fuck shit up.
Bust out this keyboard. Oh, and they play a really funny, I forgot, like it's an early, I forgot what it's like, an electrophone or like a, it's like a, it comes with a stylus, and it's an electronic box, and he like presses on it with the stylus, and it makes like a, and he like plays music on it. I forgot what it was called, but it's
right.
It's a precursor to like, I don't know, MIDI files and techno sounds, I guess. I don't know. It's very funny when he
Right.
plays with it, because he starts playing it like a piano, like tapping it with the stylus and like pressing the different chords and like making a beat out of it. He's like, yeah. It's almost like watching somebody. It's like watching somebody play a Nintendo DS, and he's just like in a recording studio with the Beatles playing Nintendo.
Nintendo D's nuts, dude.
I just got a kick out of it. I was like, what's he playing? The DS?
Oh,
It's a good time. Definitely give it a watch, and I'll definitely probably go and rewatch some parts that I missed and get some of the dialogue and the interactions that are there. And sometimes the editing is just nuts. Like you said, it was like covering up them talking, but it's like they strategically edited it so like you can't really find somebody's mouth to like focus on that who's talking. Like but
right.
it's still a fun time.
It's a fun time.